Hey there, welcome to Improv FAQ. I'm James Quesada, and the question in this video is, what are the rules in improv? And in this first video, I'd like to answer that question in a way that's immediately useful to someone who's just looking for things to focus on, or maybe before your first improv class, or your first show, or your first audition, to hopefully give you some confidence and help you avoid what you might be thinking of as rookie mistakes. But the disclaimer on this is that there really aren't any hard and fast rules in improv, except maybe don't be an asshole. That one I would stick to. But like any art form, what works in improv is limitless and ultimately subjective. And in a way, that's what this whole channel is about. The follow-up to this video will be a deeper dive into the very idea of rules in improv and how helpful and sometimes harmful they can be. That being said, here are the 5 most useful rules I can offer to somebody who's just looking to up their improv game overnight and avoid those rookie mistakes. 1, and I can't stress this one enough, connect with your scene partner, the people you're on stage with, and look to have fun with them. This means really listening, making eye contact, supporting the things they're doing, forgiving their mistakes, and assume that they also have the best intentions. This is the most broad rule, but it really is the most important. You probably know internally whether you're really open and trying to connect or you're protecting your ego instead and letting yourself get frustrated by what other people are doing or not doing. If you only have the capacity to focus on one thing, let it be connecting with the people that you're playing with. 2, don't deny or dismiss the reality of the scene. And hopefully this is easier when you are connecting and listening with your scene partner. But if someone says, "Hey, Dad," don't reply with something like, "I don't know you," because those things don't add up and they conflict with each other. Sometimes people have an impulse to do this because it feels like a funny move, but it rejects the implied reality from your scene partner and it creates a disconnect and it makes it hard to move forward and build together. And even if someone says something like, "Hey, I've got my swimsuit on," try to resist the urge to respond with something like, "But we're at the top of a volcano." It's not an outright negation, and actually it could be really fun to justify why someone is at the top of a volcano wearing a swimsuit. But it's also very risky as a move, especially if you're a less experienced player or you're playing in mixed company of strangers and friends, like in a class or an audition. And even if you are playing with friends and you know it's cool because you're just messing around with each other, the audience doesn't always know that, and so it can still feel tense and cringy to negate or deny each other and feel like you're just stiff-arming someone else's idea. So early on, don't try to be so clever, just take things at face value and focus on agreement instead. 3, help figure out what's going on in the scene. Who are we? Where are we? What are we doing? It definitely doesn't have to be all of those things at once, but any one of those things will be helpful at any point in the scene. So it's worth avoiding too many questions or saying things like, "Yeah," or "Wow," or "Hello," because questions and "wow" and "hello" don't actually establish anything in the scene. They're not true, they're not false, they might imply some things, but it's not the best way to figure out what's going on in a scene. When you say something like, "This bowling alley is awesome," or "I'm mad at you," then we know a little bit more about what's going on in the scene. And sometimes you're the first person to speak, sometimes you're following somebody else's lead, but you always want to be someone who's helping to figure out what's going on in the scene. 4, feel some way about it. And this is really the acting side of improv. Even the most well laid out scene with all the who, what, where, and story arc is going to feel hollow if there isn't some emotion at play between the characters. Giving things emotional stakes is a great way to avoid pitfalls of scenes between strangers or characters who are in a transaction or one character's teaching the other one to dance or clean toilets or whatever. That stuff can feel really boring and two-dimensional until we learn that the character learning to dance is really nervous about prom, or the character who's being instructed to clean toilets is just grateful to have a job. It can also be the easiest and deepest source of comedy in a scene when we know how the characters feel and we learn why. 5, find ways to express how you feel. It's great to know where you are if you're in a bowling alley, and bonus points if you're doing object work that looks like bowling. But it's so much more important that we see your facial expression and your body language showing us how that character feels. The location of your scene and the activity in it are really just there to give you an excuse to move and behave in whatever way your character feels. And you can find big and small ways to do that, but it's the doing that really matters. I'll throw in one more bonus tip, which is kind of interrelated to all of these. Being apathetic or unaffected by what's going on in a scene is usually not the best choice. If your reaction to everything is, who cares, or whatever, or oh well, that can play in some situations, but it often comes off as an amateur move because it's actually a safe, kind of too cool for school type of move. And it cuts off a lot of those options in those other bits of advice. So be someone who cares. Like I said, I hope this is helpful in the short term, and I think those are some pretty strong fundamentals to start with and to keep coming back to, but there's so much more to be said about the philosophy behind each of those things and the exception to every rule. That's it for this episode. Make sure you like and follow and subscribe. Leave a comment with any other questions you'd like to have answered on Improv FAQ.